Hey guys, what's up? And unless you've been living under a rock, you'd know that F1 announced the introduction of the Portimao circuit as host of the 2020 Portuguese Grand Prix. And that's why we're here in Project Cars 2. I want to see what it will be like to race Formula 1 cars at Portimao, just to give the smallest idea of what it might be like. Unfortunately, there are no 2020 F1 cars in Project Cars 2, but we've still got the next best thing, which are the Formula A cars, which are basically a generalization of a typical early 2010s V8 F1 car. I know a car like this is quite different to the V6 hybrids of today, but regardless, it still should be a lot of fun to see how it performs out on track. So in short, I'm going to be doing a 4-lap race around Portimao, otherwise known as the Algarve International Circuit, against the AI, and see how I do. So without further ado, let's begin. So here we are at the grid at Portimao as the lights go out for this 4-lap race in these knockoff F1 cars as we thunder towards the first corner. I decide to go down the middle of the pack early on the brakes, trying to play it safe into turn 1. Don't want to push the car too hard with these cold tyres and cold brakes. Coming out the exit of turn 1, still side by side with the car to my left as we go through this quick right hand kink. Now into the tight right hand hairpin of turn 3 as I send it down the inside line, squeezing up to the apex as tight as possible. Very cautious and slow up to turn 4, that corner is deceptively hard, especially in such a high downforce car like this that hates any sort of elevation change. Braking incredibly early, perhaps a bit too early in the downhill descent to turn 5, but luckily for me the Project Cars 2 AI are just as bad as me through there, side by side with 2 cars to my left as we start the uphill climb to turn 6. Forced to give up the position to the car in front as we go towards the sweeping right-hander, which sets me up perfectly to take the inside line and pass the car to my left into the uphill hairpin of turn 8. As we climb this hill, only to drop back down again and soar through this incredibly fast sweeping corner, easily flat out through there, especially in a car like this. Braking hard into the tricky turn 11 as we once again go back downhill, chasing the cars in front as we enter the final sector of the track. Undoubtedly, the main characteristic of this track has to be the sheer amount of elevation. The circuit winds up and down these rolling hills like a roller coaster, and it's great fun to drive through here. You often hear people complain about how modern F1 circuits like Yas Marina or Sochi are way too flat and boring, but this is definitely an exception to that opinion. Anyway, the AI in front are incredibly slow through this long flat out final corner, with me taking advantage of that fact, flying past the car in front with the aid of DRS. Now coming on to the second lap of this 4-lap race and going back downhill on the approach to turn 1, and I think WTF1 said it best in the fact that turn 1 at Portimao is the complete opposite of turn 1 at the Circuit of the Americas. Instead of a tight uphill hairpin like at Kota, this is a downhill, quick flowing right-hander that feeds into the next couple of corners. Anyway, the car in front cuts me off up the climb through turn 4, onto the back straight, which I imagine will be this circuit's second DRS zone, with the first one of course being the start-finish straight. Now coming through the tight hairpin of turn 5 once again, I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty of overtakes here when F1 races here later this year on the 25th of October. And personally, I think this circuit will be one of the highlights of this year's shortened F1 calendar, and I really hope it stays part of the calendar from 2021 onwards. Now once again we descend back downhill and fly through the flat out turn 9, before climbing back up the circuit into this incredibly difficult right-hander. Very easy to make a mistake there as we plummet back down the circuit as we approach the heavy braking zone of turn 13. I get on the brakes very early and very cautiously, simply because while practicing I span out here more times than I care to count, so I'm just making sure I make it to the end of the lap in one piece. Now coming on to the final couple of corners here at the Algarve International Circuit. As I come onto the final corner, it's easily flat out through here, but for whatever reason the AI really doesn't like this corner and go way slower than I do. Coming back onto the main straight and deploying DRS to sweep past the slow car to the left, and coming on to the third lap of the race, let's see if we can make up any more positions before the end. Very cautious coming into turn 1, missing the apex by an absolute mile, but the AI to the left definitely not being cautious, sending up the inside as we battle side by side into the tight turn 3. However, the other car has a much better run into turn 4, cutting in front of me and speeding away as I'm left sliding and switching up turn 4 as we come back onto the second straight. As we go downhill to turn 5, I decide to be daring on the brakes, but unfortunately that really didn't work out for me, with me running incredibly wide on exit and losing loads of time in the process. So far this really hasn't been the most clean or speedy lap, but as you know it can all change in the closing stages of this race. Although F1 has never been raced at Portimao yet, F1 cars have indeed been driven around this incredible circuit in the past, as the likes of Honda, McLaren and even Ferrari have tested their F1 cars back here when the circuit was brand new in 2009 and 2008. In fact, in around 2009 there were talks of Portimao hosting a revived Portuguese Grand Prix, but unfortunately those ideas never came to fruition until now, over 10 years later, so it's great that Portimao is finally getting the time it deserves in the spotlight after waiting so long. Now getting back on track, and as you saw just there, incredibly twitchy coming out of the slow turn 13, but now we're coming back towards the start-finish straight to begin the final lap of this mini Portuguese Grand Prix. So here we are once again back on the main straight for one final time as we go up the hill towards the start-finish line, as we once again approach the quick right-hander of turn 1. A very difficult braking zone into here, but I think on this occasion I found the sweet spot, running over the curbs on the side of the circuit as we chase the cars in front to see if we can make any more positions in the remainder of this race. Trying to be as tight and neat as possible going through turn 3 as we once again go up the sweeping uphill right-hander onto the back straight here at Portimao. The top speed down this straight can get to roughly around 270 km an hour as we make our way to the braking zone of turn 5, easily the hardest braking point on this entire circuit. Up the hill we go one final time to the flat out turn 6 and the almost flat out turn 7 as we proceed onto the second sector, still chasing the cars in front. Very cautious and steady on the exit to turn 8, don't want to spin out and lose it now, just moments from the end where it really matters. Back onto my favourite part of the circuit, the long uphill ascent through turn 9, as I try and find the braking zone for the double apex right-hander as we inch closer and closer to the car in front. Only a few corners left to go for this virtual Formula 1 race here at Portimao in Project Cars 2, taking it very gingerly through these final couple of corners, trying not to spin out right at the end. Only 2 more corners left of this race before we rejoin the pit straight and finish this race after what has been a very enjoyable experience. The 2 AI cars in front once again incredibly slow through the final corner. Moving to the inside, I deploy DRS to get alongside side by side down the main straight. It's a drag race to the line as I take the position by the tiniest possible margin of only 0.02 of a second. So there we go, what a finish that was to that Formula 1 race here at Portimao. If you have Project Cars 2 and a racing wheel, I can't urge you enough to give this a go. It's a ton of fun to drive these kind of cars round this crazy circuit. Of course, this wasn't meant to be a realistic interpretation of what F1 will be like here in a couple months' time, but I hope you still got the smallest idea of how racing is on this fantastic circuit. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This video was in a very different style to my usual videos, so let me know if you liked it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, comment, share, and I'll be back in the next video. See ya!